Once again, thank you. We will now proceed to the next item, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a presentation from Doctors Janet Simon, Karen Langung, Will Long, and John Dell Jenkins. Dr. Janet, I see you're up. Would you like to make the presentation?
Yes, thank you. I will kick this off.
No one cares.
Can we
I
unmute?
am Janet Simon. I'm the New Mexico delegate and chair of the Public Health and Preventative Podiatric Medicine Committee. PHPPMC is a bit of a mouthful, so I'm going to shorten that to the PHC in my reference here. I also wish to begin this session by acknowledging the indigenous lands that I reside on. In fact, that we all reside on. Here in New Mexico, we have 24 federally recognized Native nations, 20 Pueblos, 3 Apache nations, and the Navajo Nation. I encourage all of you to recognize your own native lands that your communities reside on. My co-panelists today, Dr. John Dell Jenkins from Illinois, Dr. Karen Langung from New York, and also president of the American Association of Women Podiatrists, and Dr. Will Long, who is our Board of Trustees member. Health disparities have been on APMA's radar for many years, albeit at a low priority level, and have been included under the PHC's areas of interest for the last several years. At this point, hopefully I can screen share, and here we go. Okay. I think, is that being seen? Correct. So we have the APMA statement that was published this summer. The PHC subcommittee on health disparities and equity, following the June 2nd statement, engaged the Board of Trustees and submitted suggestions for extending the original statement, and resulted in the statement that is being viewed here. Several actions were suggested in this statement, and I'm not going to read them all since you're all capable of doing that, and hopefully had seen this statement previously. We are also pleased that several actions have been undertaken already, and my other panelists today will provide information about some of these ongoing efforts in more detail. APMA's president, Seth Rubenstein, has also created a task force for further DEI discourse, and Dr. Long will have more to say about this task force. Why focus on DEI? I'd like to share a quote from Kamara Jones, MD, who is a past president of the American Public Health Association. Racism is foundational in our nation's history, and yet many people are in staunch denial of its continued existence and its profoundly negative effects on the health and well-being of the nation. The effects of racism and our denial of it are inescapable. when we constrain Black, Indigenous, and Hispanic lives through the system of inequality, we lose the genius of those individuals to our entire society. Racism and the negative effects of bias are fundamental challenges in public health, and structural racism is a foundational cause of health inequities and disparities. We acknowledge many populations and communities that experience injustice and inequity, along with people of color, LGBTQI communities, people with disabilities, elders, all are being negatively impacted. In addition, history has shown that where we have managed to dismantle one piece of the structure, another gets built to perpetuate the systems of racial privilege and oppression. Therefore, in this ongoing public health crisis, we must become active to advance healthcare that's patient-centered, evidence-driven, and available to all people. Our PHC has followed up with invitations to your components and to APMA educational affiliates and related organizations. We've received several responses and have already collaborated with the AAWP. I look forward to continuing future collaborative projects with our components and related organizations. At this point, I wish to turn the panel over to Dr. Jenkins. Thank you.
Hi, this is Dr. Jenkins. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you, Dr. Jenkins. We're trying to get you your video.
Turn it on.
Okay.
I don't want the video.
No.
Yeah, hi, this is Dr. Jenkins. Stephanie, do you have my presentation up? Thank you.
Go ahead,
First of
Dr.
all, I
Jenkins.
would like to thank Janet for her continued dedication to this entire area of public health, healthcare disparities, racism, and all types of implicit bias. She asked me to give a short presentation about some of the experiences that probably have happened to me, also some of the history about the National Podiatric Medical Association, which is the minority component of the American Podiatric Medical Association. Next slide. Okay, the dark side, people of color. National Podiatry Association was actually started in 1971 by a group of Black podiatrists. The founding fathers were Frank Fields, he was from the California area, Thomas Stevens, he was from the California area, Leonard Britton from Chicago, and Ben Clark, who is from Texas, and Ben Clark is still living and still practicing. The reason why this organization started, why did it begin, is because there was a time when the American Podiatry Association, which was the predecessor to the American Podiatric Medical Association, did not allow Black podiatrists to be a part of their organization. It wasn't written, however, you had to go through the state societies to become a member of the National Society, and there were several states, especially in the South, that did not were not amenable to having the Black or brown physicians join. There were so many things like lost applications, did not receive your application, all of those kind of things happen. And the reason why the National Podiatry Association started was mainly because of this inability to get into the American Podiatric Medical Association. Now, I know there's a couple of people who probably know a lot about it too. If Larry Harkless is on and he wants to chime in, he's welcome to chime in. Next slide, please. In the early days, the National Podiatry Association, which became the National Podiatric Medical Association, tried to become an affiliate of the American Podiatric Medical Association in the late 80s. However, reason why it did not work, the main reason why you had the main stipulation in order to become an affiliate, you had to have all your membership had to be a member of the APMA. There were several of the older guys from the National Podiatry Association who refused to join the APMA, mainly because they remembered how it was. They said that they would never, over their dead bodies, join an organization that at one time would not allow them to be in. So that's how the committee called COMMIT began. COMMIT. It's the Committee on Multicultural Intertask. And it was a part of APMA for years, and it was started on the preface of being a liaison between minorities and the APMA. For whatever reason, due to poor leadership and lack of interest, the committee dissolved because I don't think it had enough public relations for it to be effective. Next slide. Okay, some personal reflections. Slap in the face moments, okay? There have been some slap in the face moments for me. As you know, I've been a member of APMA for several years, and I have been active in the House for probably the last 20 years. My mentors and strong faith have brought me through everything. And one thing I do want to say, when I started in the House 20 years ago, there were 3 Blacks, me, Larry Harkless, and Ali Foster. Now here, 20 some years later, there's still 3. It's me, well, Will Long and Will Harris, and Larry comes in and out. He's an alternate delegate, but we have to do better. Bottom line, we have to do better. We have to seek the minorities to become part of APMA and become involved in leadership. I've had some memorable experiences in my life as a podiatrist. One thing that sticks out in my head is I was practicing on the south side of Chicago for about 10 years. And another podiatrist built a building from ground up down the street. Of course, they were white. And their main thing, they even had a board in front of in their lobby saying, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's not board certified. And then it said underneath that, none of them on the south side are, okay? So none of them on the south side are. Of course, that meant all the Black doctors on the south side were not board certified. So what did I do? Instead of sitting there and crying, I started studying my behind off, and I became board certified. Before that, I really wasn't thinking about it. So this is how sometimes negativity can make you do something positive. So I tell the young girls coming in all the time, with the young girls and the young men, to make it work, make it work. If it's something standing in front of you, just make it work. Figure out how you can make it work. And I can even go back to, they started an IPA in Chicago, and they were passing out literature to come to their meeting. And Dr. Bailey, Catherine Bailey, she's in Rockford, and she's also Black. We were sitting at the table, so they had given us the information to come to the IPA starting. And then the owner of the IPA saw that we had the information, was looking at it. He came and snatched it from us and told the other guys, oh no, we don't want them. So, so something like that. But this particular IPA, when I became very successful and when my practice was a multi-million-dollar practice, they came to me and they wanted me to join. So you know what I told them. Okay, one of my last personal reflections, running for the Board of Trustees. I love the House of Delegates and I love the Board of Trustees. I did run for the Board of Trustees, and there was one particular acey-deucey leader that actually stared me in the face and told me he could never support the likes of me. And he didn't even know me. My husband was there, and it took everything in my power to keep my husband off of him. But he did go on and go to jail for Medicare fraud. So anyway, anyway, those are some of my personal reflections. But go on, I can take a couple. I can talk about this all day, and I know you don't want me to. So can I have the next slide? So what is my proposal? I propose for a liaison for social, racial, and sexual injustices between the APMA and the brown and black world, and also for the young women that are coming out, because I have answered several complaints. People seem to call me, I guess they think I'm an old crow. Something that happened even as recently as 10, 12 years ago, a young girl called me and she was in tears because she said her application in a very famous state that the leadership is probably still on this call. She said her application kept getting lost. So being a part of the House of Delegates, I knew the people in this particular state. So I actually contacted this person and asked them what were they running and why in the world was her application lost. Of course, the next day they found her application and they made her a member of the APMA. Now, I just have one private moment as a Black parent, and I wish you can share that. I wish I can share that with you. And maybe you can take this moment that I'm getting ready to tell you, and then maybe you can take some inferences from that. When my daughter was 4 years old, we went to a history museum in Baltimore. It was called Blacks in Wax History Museum. So we were going through the exhibits, they had stuff about funeral homes, they had stuff about Martin Luther King, and everything was fine. So we got to this one big room, and it was a depiction of a lynching in the South. It was two young Black kids hanging from a tree. So my daughter, she just looks at me and she said, "Mommy, why are they hanging from a tree?" So in that moment, I knew that I had not talked to her at all about racism, about injustice, about anything. I did not know, as much as I talk, I was speechless. Here she's 4 years old. She's had a cake life, nothing but, travel, everything. She did not understand why these young people were hanging from the tree. So I immediately just said, "Come on, honey, let's go to McDonald's. And we'll talk about it later." But it's just those kind of moments when you're a Black parent or when you're experiencing any kind of racial or implicit bias. And when you have to explain that to a child, that can be the worst moment in your life, when you have to explain something like that to a child. So in closing, I want to thank I've met wonderful, wonderful people here at the House of Delegates, IPMA. I just want to say something funny. When we first started talking about having a committee on disparities, we were at an alliance meeting. As much as I love, he said, "Well, we don't need a committee like this." And I said, "Well, just the fact that you're asking means that we need a committee like this." And we do need to continue to delve into healthcare disparities. I have stood on the shoulders of many people. As I said, Larry Harkless, I met him 30 years ago. He was cute as a button. I even had a crush on him. And Ollie Foster, and of course I knew Teddy Clark before he died. And all of these people are giants in the field of podiatric medicine, and they have contributed a lot. So thank you for this opportunity for me to share some things with you. If anybody has any questions they want to ask me, I have plenty of stories to tell. I love all of you all. I thank you for all the years that you have ingratiated me, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Dr. Simon, do you have any additional individuals to speak?
Yes, Dr. Karen Lagone is next on our panel. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Go on, Karen.
Dr. Langone, are you with us? There you go.
I am.
Great.
Okay. So let's get our screen shared up here. Let's share. Okay. Everybody have that? We're good?
No, I'm sorry, not yet.
All right. How about now? Okay, let's see.
We're still not getting it.
All right, I'll run through it then on my own. I want to thank the House for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you today. Now, on behalf of the American Association for Women Podiatrists, we ran a very simple survey just to try to examine the role of bias in the profession and hopefully just to educate ourselves as to what some of our fellow DPMs go through. Our question was very simple. We just asked members of the profession to share any stories of bias, discrimination, or cultural insensitivity that they had encountered in their careers. And we asked them not to put any identifying factors in. Our purpose, again, was just really to educate everyone as to the experience of other DPMs, and then hopefully raise awareness and let everybody know that there is systemic bias that exists in our culture, and hopefully make us more aware so that we can combat that. We sent this out via the APMA weekly message, and I wish to thank APMA for that. And we also did a presentee blast, and we blasted it on our social media. We had 48 respondents who reported 89 different incidents. So multiple respondents from multiple incidents. It appeared based on the responses that all our respondents were female, and that was not our intent. Our intent was basically to get everybody involved. We were not looking for this to be something that only women would respond to. Oh, there we go. Okay. I think. Good. I just can't advance my slides now.
Karen, just say advanced slides and I will advance them for you.
Okay, Janet, I think we are up to probably slide 4. One more, and one more, and one more again. Great. So our results showed that the #1 issue that people responded to was basically just gender bias in general, or bias regarding potential pregnancy. The second most common issue was sexual harassment. The third was racial discrimination. And the fourth was obesity. And now I'm just going to share some of the stories. The first story that we got, I've been told that I speak English very well and that I don't have an accent since I am a woman of color. I was born in the US and English is my first language. Next slide, Janet. One male attending wouldn't let me in the OR because women shouldn't be surgeons, in his opinion. An attending asked a female candidate, "Why should we train you when you will just go and have babies and stop practicing?" During residency interviews, I was asked, "How do you get at that time of the month? Would you still come to the hospital and make rounds?" As a resident, attendings would rub against me and make comments about my breasts. As an attending, I was being ignored by the anesthesiologist in OR, and conversation was always directed to male students or residents. I had repeated pressure from my program director to engage in a sexual relationship. I always and firmly refused and was punished with a poor schedule, taken off cases, or frozen out. Multiple respondents noted that they're always being overlooked and only male DPMs are spoken to at conferences and in the exhibit halls. One person reported, "Oh, you speak English very well. I don't speak any other languages." During my residency interview, I remember being asked to stand up and read an X-ray at a view box. A resident began coughing. I was asked to repeat this process while the coughing continued. It never occurred to me that in a professional situation, grown men would think it funny to have me get up to view an X-ray, lean over, and then stare at my ass. When attending the APMA National as a student, a mentor asked me to watch a movie in his room. As a student in a VA clinic, a patient refused to see me. This was an Asian American female DPM student. The attending apologized to the patient, but never discussed it with the student. I was asked 7 times during an interview if I planned on getting pregnant and screwing them by taking 3 months maternity leave. I have been called the N-word by patients and former employees. I was told by a male attending, as a married woman, you need to redirect your ambitions because you will never be a successful surgeon. Your job will be to raise a family and take care of your husband. I was operating, and out of nowhere, the white anesthesiologist spoke to me in Hindi. He assumed I was of Indian descent. While working in my first job, the owner of the practice suggested I go across town and hop on the table to get to know the local OBGYN to increase my referral rates. When interviewing for a residency when I was pregnant, I was asked what I would do when the baby is sick. My answer, what do you do when your child is sick? When I was a resident, my residency director told people I was gay. It was not his truth to tell. He spent that year making my life miserable. I reported his behavior, gaslighting, and harassment to HR. He dragged me out of a surgical case, and my life became even worse. I wish the other attendings and co-residents had come to my defense, but they stood around and watched it happen. I barely survived the year, but it changed me. So we hope to encourage everyone to educate themselves on implicit bias, and for all of us to work towards diversity, equality, and inclusion in the profession and in our daily lives. Thank you. We can do better.
Thank you, Dr. Langon. Dr. Long, I think you're next up. Dr.
Yeah.
Simon, is that correct?
Yes. I'm very proud to be the chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. And I want to thank APMA, the board, and especially Dr. Rubenstein for having the courage to develop this task force. As we all know, it's the elephant in the room. Anytime you start speaking of race, sexual orientation, gender, the air gets sucked out the room. It's not a easy thing to discuss, but after the incidents of 2020 with George Floyd and watching a man die 8 minutes on a TV, I think everybody's eyes were opened. So with saying that, the purpose of the DEI task force is to make sure that everybody has a voice. We should not hear these stories that we're hearing now, but do they happen? Yes. And a lot of times we turn a blind eye, or we giggle and laugh and we walk off, but that does not make our profession any better. We are all leaders. Everyone listening to me are leaders. So therefore, we should be trying to make APMA better for the individuals coming behind us. So therefore, we should not and we cannot discriminate on age, cultural disability, racial, religious, sexual gender, or sexual orientation. It just cannot be tolerated. And if you do see it, you need to speak up. I want to give one example. I mean, I am from South Carolina, so I could probably give many, but during my residency program, and I attended the University of Pennsylvania. That is a Ivy League residency program. I was coming into the hospital. It was probably 5 a.m, and I lived in Delaware, so I had Delaware tags. And there was a truck behind me that was blinking their white lights. So I'm in Philadelphia going to my residency program at 5 a.m. I wasn't stopping my truck to find out, what was going on, just because there are some bad areas around. I ended up going into the physician parking lot, scanned in, and the truck followed me in, still blinking white lights. I grabbed my bag, I stepped out of the truck, and there was a gun pointed in my face. I'm staring down the barrel of a gun, and I was called everything but the child of God. So at that point, I truly shocked. I got back in my car, sat. I kind of figured out that this was a cop, and the fact that there were other police cars now starting to pull in. My truck is surrounded, probably with 5 or 6 cops. I could not count them. And I'm sitting here, and I just calmly asked the officer, well, why did you pull, what the problem is? She did not respond. She actually insulted me again and asked me why I was smiling, but everyone who knows me knows I smile all the time. I'm a big guy, and I like to kind of diffuse the situation when I see people, so I smile a lot. So she walked off, and another cop that was standing in front of my car, I politely asked him, why am I being stopped, or what the problem is, and still no one answered me. And during this time, a lot of people are starting to pull in, coming into work, and a lot of people are just walking by, kind of turning their head as if this is not happening. And one thing that sticks out to me is that one of my co-residents, his name is Jake Wands, and I'm sorry I get kind of shaken up, but he actually stopped and he said, "Will, are you all right?" And I said, "I'm okay, Jake, I'm okay." And the officer said, "Keep moving. You need to keep moving, sir." But just in that moment, because he did have empathy for what I was going through, he's a true friend to this day. Again, these are things that should not happen. To move the story forward, because again, it's like ripping off a scab every time I tell the story. I've served in 2 armed forces. I was in the United States Army Reserve as a medical assistant. I served 8 years active duty in the United States Coast Guard, and I was over Homeland Security. So I know use of force and I know rules of engagement. So I was very upset. I finally, when the cop figured out that I did nothing wrong, she came and she threw 4 tickets in my car. Still did not explain what I had done. I looked over the tickets, and I went in and I spoke to my residency director, and I said, I would like to go speak to this officer's chief, because again, for her speaking to me that way, she never turned on her red and blue lights. And I had a gun pointed in my face when I got out of my car. And he understood, and he saw I was very upset. And I went and spoke with the chief, and I told my story. And the chief looked at me and he said, why didn't you tell her you were a physician? I don't know what me being a physician has to do with me having a gun pointed in my face, and you giving me tickets for no reason. So I'll end the story there. So again, there is a lot of implicit, but I can't take this skin off. I was born with it. Again, we have to be more understanding of everyone's differences. So again, I hope that this will be the aim of the task force. And I think we will have a lot of positive things that come out of it. I know that Seth did meet with the National Medical Association this summer and gave a presentation, which is a great start. As the board, Dr. DeHare also provided us with a lot of articles that have been published by the American Medical Association that deals with a lot of these things, that deal with race and gender, because they know this is out here. So I'm glad that APMA is stepping forward and taking this on head on. And I wish and hope that everyone supports this task force. Thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Dr. Long or any of the members of the group put together by Dr. Simon? Well, I, as one, would like to thank all of you for your presentation today. We all need to pay a little more attention. Will, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simon and your group. Did you have a comment, ma'am?
I believe I see in the chat, Dr. Harkless has requested to comment, please.
Okay, Dr. Harkless, we're going to move you up to respond to requests by Dr. Simon. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, I just wanted to come in and thank everybody for their presentation. They were really excellent and on par with what we need to be dealing with on a national basis through APMA. I do want to share one quick thing, one minute. Back in July of this year, I was appointed by the Dean of the Medical School at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley to chair the Diversity and Inclusion ad hoc work group on health equity and anti-racism. And I must say that I have learned a tremendous amount that I'm willing to share with the group, with Dr. Simon, et cetera. And I created an entire document that I submitted to the Dean that I just had a meeting with him on this past Friday so that we can implement. But the most important part of that were the students that was actually involved in the process. And I'll stop there, and I look forward to working with everyone so that we can improve this process. But the most important piece is listening into awareness. The key is listening into awareness. Thank you.
You're absolutely correct, Dr. Harkless, and thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Simon? Dr. Clark, you had something you wanted to say? I'm not sure if Dr. Clark was involved in this discussion or wanted to bring up another issue. Is there anything else? Would anybody like to ask questions or continue discussion with Dr. Simon and her group? Hearing none, I'd like to thank all of you very much for your contribution today. It went way beyond what we would expect in an open forum like this. Thank you very much.